Everybody, welcome. Nice to see you all. We'll start by setting our motivation. And so just take a minute and get yourself grounded, centered in your space. And then together, if you feel comfortable, to the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three ever devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms, atoms, and all aspects. With supreme faith, I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. And so we'll pause here for a moment and meditate on this verse from the Diamond Cutter Sutra, letting it play back in your head. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, illusion, a drop of dew, or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. And continuing, through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. And then refuge in bodhicitta. Sangaya Jodam Sogi Chunam Laya Janchu Badu Dani Kapsuchi Dagi Chunyan Gi Pe Sonam Ki Rola Benje Sangay Drupa Sho Sangaya Jodam Sogi Chunam La Janchu Badu Dani Kapsuchi Dagi Chunyan Gi Pe Sonam Ki Drola benje sange drupa sho sangeya chudam sogi chunam la janchu badu dani kapsuchi dagi chunyan gi be sonam gi drola benje sange drupa sho. And reconnecting with the motivation. Okay. So, this weekend, we're going to be talking about deepening and developing your meditation practice. And in this first session, I'm going to go through the basics, the nuts and bolts, which many of you already know. Some of you might even teach. It's going to be quite straightforward, but just so that we're all on the same page. And particularly if you've had these teachings before, it's good to revisit them occasionally and ask yourself what parts need a little bit of shining up. So this first session is just kind of getting us all on the same page, and then we'll be able to dig a little bit deeper progressively as the weekend goes on. Yeah, I would like a cup of tea. Thank you so much. Herbal. Thank you so much. Just curious, show of hands, who has some kind of meditation practice? Some kind. Yeah, everybody, everybody. A few people are like, well, such as it is. But yeah, most of you have something that you're up to. How many of you is it daily? True talking. Maybe half? Yeah. Yep. And then then just sort of so I know who's the more senior students, not a value judgment, just information, who has tantric commitments that you do daily? Couple, maybe a quarter. Okay. Great. So we'll be able to speak to you students that have sadhana practices in a kind of general way that's applicable to everyone. So please make sure you ask those questions that you've been wanting to ask, and just being aware that tantric content is not going to be universally appropriate in this setting. So just be mindful of what you bring up, but absolutely we can go there, particularly around logistics and momentum and remedies and things like that. So you more advanced students, don't worry, we've got you. Okay. So starting at the very beginning, um, bookends, okay? That your practice needs bookends. Yes, your daily life, your sessions, your life in general, we need bookends. This would be the teaching on the 5 powers that some of you might already know about. But to put it really simply, you need a motivation and a dedication, right? Your session, your day, your life, a motivation and a dedication. So this is obvious to most of you, but if you've not necessarily practiced Tibetan Buddhism, it might not be so clearly outlined or so specifically pointed to. It might go without saying that you need to know why you're doing it and why you just did it. And sometimes we kind of get into routines and take these concepts for granted, forgetting that these bookends, for lack of a better word, are what really give you momentum. So being very clear about why am I doing this meditation session? Why did I do this meditation session? Gives a lot more life force to also the periods in between. So before you meditate and before you kind of get in amongst your day, why? Right? Do we have our why? Is our why something that we can be honest about and not do spiritual bypassing about and then consciously adjust? So your why might be because I decided to, right? Or because I think it's a good idea, or because I'm stressed out and I want more peace. And then you consciously expand, elevate, however you want to frame it, into something like refuge and bodhicitta, right? And then afterwards, why did I do that? To what end? Yeah, to what end was all of this effort, all of this mental effort to focus, to do analysis or single pointedness, to do sadhana work or whatever it is? Why? Right? So you want a bodhicitta beginning and a bodhicitta end. What is bodhicitta, gang? Shout out some words about it. And I think even our Zoom crew can shout out now. We fixed the audio in theory. What is bodhicitta? Not a test, you can say colloquially in everyday language. What is it? Yes, please. You keep hearing different definitions of it. True. Your own definition, if it's qualified by the appropriate sources, might be fine. How do you describe it?
Sort of radiating,
Radiating of goodwill. Radiating of goodwill. That's beautiful. That'll do the trick. Yeah, that'll do the trick. That's not like the technical definition, but that will totally do the trick. Um, what other words do you associate with bodhicitta? Anybody? Interbeing. Interesting. Interbeing, interconnection. Yeah,
Erin,
Aaron,
go ahead
online,
and
go
unmute.
ahead.
The wish to develop your highest potential.
Oh no, the audio
Oh,
doesn't
no.
work. Curses. Oh, we were so close. Karen says compassion. Solid. Aaron, do you want to write yours in the chat? Oh, try again. Aaron, can you try again just for the sake of the tech, just in case?
The wish to attain the highest, well, now I'm all nervous. The wish to develop your highest potential so that you can benefit all sentient beings, bringing them to enlightenment. So becoming a Buddha so that you can enlighten others.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Yep, that hits all the key points there. Yep, beautiful. Brenda's saying the awakening mind for the benefit of all. Yep, solid. Solid. So bodhicitta is Sanskrit and it means like awakening mind. In Tibetan, Janchub Sem means mind of enlightenment. What we're talking about is the mind that seeks enlightenment. Why? In order to be of benefit to all sentient beings. So bodhicitta is the main Mahayana motivation, right? Is the reason for doing everything else. In our tradition, it is the mainstay. Yeah, bodhicitta is the reason for everything. It's what makes us Mahayanists or not Mahayanists. It's what makes us of the Sanskrit tradition, of the Nalanda tradition, as opposed to the Pali tradition or some of the traditions you find in like Burma or Thailand, etc. And not that those aren't wonderful in their own way, but what is the distinction is the motivation, right? Are we motivated towards Buddhahood or are we motivated towards nirvana? Because they're not the same thing. Yes. Yes, we know this. Well, mostly. A few people are like, oh no, crap, aren't they? Yeah, that's fine. No worries. It's all right. It's all right. We're getting ourselves tidy. You're like, I've been a Buddhist for 30 years. Oh no. Right. Okay, so Buddhahood is what? Buddhahood is the state where all of your suffering has been pacified, all of your afflictions have been pacified, all of your qualities have been developed to their fullest potential. And together with that is an omniscience, not an omnipotence, but an omniscience, right? You can see everything and know everything, and you need that skill in order to benefit sentient beings accurately. Someone abiding in nirvana, it's a mental state without sorrow. Yeah, you're free from suffering, but you haven't necessarily developed your mind to its fullest extent. So you're not causing any trouble, right? Like if we all achieve nirvana, we'd be doing well, but it's not proactively seeking to enact the welfare of others to bring them to Buddhahood themselves, right? So it's kind. You know, there's loving kindness, there's compassion, there's all these beautiful qualities in the Pali tradition. And there's also maybe like a healthy assessment that you really can't change anybody, right? Because we can't. But we can be a very positive influence on someone if they are ready to change. We can support people who are ready to develop. We can offer tools for people that want them. But we can't like force anyone to become enlightened, can we? That would be very silly to even try. You can't even force someone to like eat healthy or like go for a walk daily. But if they want to, you can be moral support and say, I'll go with you. Or remember that you wanted to. Do you know what I mean? So nirvana versus enlightenment, it's a philosophical distinction. In terms of your daily life, it does change the way you do your practice to think, I am doing this for the sake of others. I am doing this for the sake of all sentient beings. And all sentient beings includes me. It's not like all sentient beings accept me, right? For all sentient beings. But you're not doing the spiritual path for yourself alone. It's very intentionally altruistic. And that's an essential component of the Mahayana tradition. So when we say motivate with bodhicitta, dedicate with bodhicitta, what we're really saying is I'm doing this meditation in order to fulfill my mind's fullest potential to be of greatest benefit to all sentient beings, as Aaron said so articulately. It's the awakening mind that seeks enlightenment. So technically, we say it's the main mind with two aspirations. The main mind with two aspirations. And we say main mind as opposed to mental factor. For us, it is a mental factor. For us, it is a thought. First, it is something that we have to stop and think about. But if you stop and think about it often enough, it becomes what is called a main mind or primary consciousness and informs the rest of your thoughts. So the two aspirations are to become enlightened and to benefit sentient beings. So the main mind with two aspirations, the main Mahayana motivation, the mind of enlightenment. And it does have the association or the characteristic of like warmth and goodwill. Absolutely. The good heart, the open heart. It has all of those associations in terms of experience. And for us, we want to ask ourselves, what is it like so far experientially? And it will have an association of compassion, of love, but not just passive compassion and love that wishes sentient beings freedom from suffering and wishes them to have happiness, but proactive compassion and love that thinks, in order to help achieve those aims, I need to develop. In order to be more intentional and direct in my aid of others, I need to get my own act together. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, oh, sorry, Barry, please go ahead. Can you unmute yourself?
I'm relatively new to the practice, like taking a discovering
Sure.
Buddhism class. And when I meditate, which is now daily, I begin with my motivation, but my deepest motivation is much more personal. And I think when I end with bodhicitta, I'm not being, yeah, I want everyone to be enlightened, but I'm not being that honest. My deepest practice, is to myself. I know that's not good, but it's where I'm at now. And so I'm like half honest when I'm saying bodhicitta. I really want to get my act together. I'm 84. I want a good, precious human rebirth, things that I accept. Anyway, that's kind of the question. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, and I thank you for your honesty and your candor. And I think that that's quite common, right? Is that we're doing our meditation practice because we want some meaning in our life, we want some peace in our life, we want more relaxation, more intentionality, more contentment for ourselves. And we know that if we are a more peaceful and content person, our family would appreciate it, right? So there's going to be a side effect right away. And the pets also, they will like that. The neighbors also, etc., coworkers, on and on and on. So you know that you having more peace is going to have a benefit. And absolutely start with the honesty that says, I'm doing this for my own sake. Absolutely. You need to know that. And then knowing that, consciously expand and say, and also, so too, all sentient beings want happiness, peace of mind, contentment, fulfillment of their mind's potential, freedom from suffering. So what I want, others want. So you use yourself as like the guinea pig of, okay, what I want is what others want, even if they describe it differently and frame it differently. Fundamentally, we just all want happiness and freedom from suffering and are confused about the causes of both. And, trip over ourselves our whole life and occasionally are successful and are not sure why, right? You're like, oh, it's a good day. I'm not sure how that happened, and you like, it must be the weather. I don't know, and you sort of like pick one thing to give all the credit to. Or you have a terrible day and you think, oh, it must have been the traffic, like it was ever one thing. Yeah. So gradually we take ourselves as the guinea pig and then say, and so too all sentient beings. And I think that if you start with that self-honesty and consciously expand, you're not lying, but you might also be aware that you have partiality and bias, right? That you want all sentient beings to have happiness and the causes of happiness, and also your neighbor annoys you. Yeah. Those can be true simultaneously. You're very annoying and may you have happiness and its causes. Yeah. Right. Like it's you can do both, but it takes a lot of practice to be able to do both because we so associate people with their behaviors. Yeah. We don't associate people with the deepest characteristics of their mind, which is identical to the deepest characteristics of our mind, which is that we have clarity and awareness, we have innate ignorance, we have Buddha nature. That is the same for all of us, those characteristics. The rest is details. And some of those details are like fairly obnoxious, right? Like there are some people who like their mind's ignorance has led them to all sorts of negative habitual behaviors, and they are hard work to be around. But they are not hard work, right? Like it's not an intrinsic characteristic of them. So if you can say, yeah, from my perspective, from my conditioning, from my karma, from my history, I find those behaviors hard work. And they just want happiness and don't want suffering, just like me. They have the potential for happiness and the potential to be free of suffering, just like me. May I work on my own in order to help them do their work as well? Does that sort of help, Barry?
Yeah, very, very much. It kind of clarifies. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you're honest with yourself and you're not talking over the top of your initial motivation. We're just using our initial motivation and then expanding it. Yeah, not talking over the top of it. Yeah, so bodhicitta, very important. If you are still kind of unclear about bodhicitta, you could say love, no worries. You could say compassion, you could say peace. Um, so the question becomes, what are or will be your session and daily bookend thoughts, prayers, poems, image, word? Like, don't be passive about it. Like, decide, right? You're allowed to change your mind. Yeah, you're allowed to change your mind. It could be bodhicitta and refuge at the beginning, bodhicitta at the end, solid, never goes out of style. And it could also be a Rumi poem or like Khalil Gibran or something. It could be, I don't know, Mary Oliver, like rock on, like do what works for you, but decide. Why? Because your practice could have more power, right? Your practice could have more power if you bring more intentionality to why are you doing it. We have a kind of a passive taking for granted. Well, I'm doing it because it's a good idea, or I'm doing it because I'm a spiritual person, or, we have kind of flaky motivation sometimes. Or you say I'm doing it from bodhicitta, but then you forgot to figure out what bodhicitta was, right? It's normal, but like take the bull by the horns in terms of your practice and really ask yourself these deep questions. Why am I doing this? To what end? So, what are your session daily thoughts? You don't have to make a definitive decision in this exact moment, but let's spend like 2 minutes exploring. And if you already are solid and you've had solid bookends for years, call them back, strengthen them right now. So, whether you journal or you reflect, let's do 2 minutes of this. What will be your session and daily bookend thoughts? Prayers, poems, image, or word. What are some of my whys? What are some of my to what ends? What are my motivations and dedication thoughts? Not the boxes I'm supposed to check, but my real intentions that I want to deepen. Okay. If a few people feel comfortable sharing your frame, your bookends, that would be beautiful, but I know it's kind of personal. What do you say to yourself at the beginning, or what do you want to start saying to yourself at the beginning before you even start to meditate or before you even start to go about your day? What do you want to launch with? And as long as it's friendly, it's correct, right? If it's like world domination, incorrect. Right? Yeah, please go ahead. Series of morning prayers. Yeah, yeah.
And maybe it's when I'm washing the dishes.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's I'm straightening the bed, or maybe it's like right before I do my evening, which is
Mhm.
which changes a lot from like recitation 3 times, or, I'm really feeling the need 21. Sometimes I'm more elaborate about, actually I do visualizations. I say some things, sometimes I just run off at the mouth, the words, and in the morning, I'm careful not to do the Tibetan words, even if I know them, because I want me to be fully aware of what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I need the English for a while.
Yeah.
But it's rocky. I mean, I've got lovely cushions, but I don't sit on them.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. The cushion can be intimidating, right? It feels like you've like committed now if you sit down on the cushion. And it sounds like you've got a lot of like good variations and a good like number of options, and that you've got some mainstays, and that you kind of have some things that you can do. And sometimes you're feeling it and sometimes you aren't. And I think that part of our hesitation to sit down and meditate is that the first few minutes are uncomfortable. Right. The first few minutes of transitioning from busyness and activity to sitting still and shifting gears, our brain does not like it. It doesn't. It's like, bah, I'm not stimulated. Quick, quick, playlist. Quick playlist. Quick, quick, quick. Aromatherapy. Let's do that. Let's do that. Lighting. And we kind of get like, what do you mean no stimulation? Then I'll have to be alone with my thoughts. Crap. Right. So that transition is uncomfortable a lot of the time, and that is really normal. And if it's only about 3 minutes of uncomfortable, and then somatic sigh usually accompanies, right? At some point, you kind of take a deep breath and are like, okay, here we are, refuge and bodhicitta. So I would suggest that for your meditation practice, whether you're a beginner or not, to tell yourself, I'm not even allowed to meditate for the first 3 minutes. I'm just going to sit still and drift and like let yourself drift. I'm not meditating, I'm drifting. And maybe don't sit perfectly in meditation posture. Maybe sit with your knees up, kind of hanging out like, all right, what was today? Right? Or what was last night? And just kind of like let yourself mull. Yeah, mull stuff over. And then you might have to put a timer on that, because you could get lost with dissociation or lost with the fairies, and just like 2 hours go by and you've just been drifting, right? So you might want to put an egg timer on that little sucker and say, okay, settling. And now shift position, and now start your prayers, and now do your meditation. And it's got more chance of being smooth without that kind of tension and resistance of like psyching yourself out. And you say to yourself, okay, I could meditate for any number of minutes. And sometimes in retreat, I've done these big long sessions, and sometimes in courses, I've done these big long sessions, but this is my daily practice. How about I call it early, so I want to keep doing it? So I could do 10 minutes, but I'm going to do 5. Quit while you're ahead to help develop the habit, because honestly, the hardest part is developing the habit. Once you have the habit of meditating in the morning and meditating in the evening, and maybe some short sprinkles during the day, once you have those, then you can gradually build them out. Yeah, but getting yourself to just get used to, I wake up, I go to the bathroom, I put on some socks, maybe I brush my teeth first, maybe I don't, plonk. Maybe I do some water bowls, maybe I light a candle, but just like you have your routine, and then you can grow it gently. Yeah. So when you're doing prayers with dishes or prayers with chores, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. It's very useful. Mantras are good for that too. It's just that part of you is still kind of needing to be stimulated while sitting with profound ideas. And that is worth gently being curious about and saying, can I just sit still with these thoughts? Even if I'm not on my meditation cushion, even if I'm in my favorite armchair with my feet up, let's just like be with these ideas. So, for example, the refuge and bodhicitta prayer that we did at the beginning of the class, you're like, what is refuge? What is bodhicitta? Oh, it's in the prayer, right? And we forget because we do it in Tibetan. And I think it's very skillful that you do your morning stuff in English. But okay, I go for refuge to what? Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Until when? Until you're enlightened. How? By the merits I create, through listening to the Dharma, through the practices of the six perfections, through the meditation practice I'm about to do. The rest of this sentence can get adjusted by the merits you create through, right? Through that, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. That's the definition of bodhicitta, that last line. Yeah. So when you're doing refuge in bodhicitta, this prayer can be so familiar and so beautiful, but also you can take it for granted and miss the profundity. So if you unpack it and just do it line by line, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened. What does that mean? How do I do that? Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, what are those? How do I connect with them? By the merits I create through what I'm about to do, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Do I believe that? Do I want that? You know, you can ask yourself, how do I do an analytical meditation? And there's a lot of very straightforward strategies, but some of the things that you learned at school also work, like Socratic questioning. Just run through some what, where, why, hows. You know, you don't have to like overthink it. Like, what is that? How do I do it? Where did it come from? Do I believe in it? You know, just ask yourself questions about it. Even though you know a lot of the answers already, you're proactive in that way, not passive. Yeah, please go ahead. Can you grab the mic? There you go.
Venerable, thank you for taking time out of your schedule with your nunnery and everything to be here and teach us. We've appreciated your kind, gentle way of bringing us along here. But one of the things that has helped me with the I will lead all beings to enlightenment, which is quite heavy, right? So the other day,
yeah, go on.
The other day you mentioned it's like going on a hike. So if I'm getting a group of friends and I want to reach that summit of the mountain, and I say, you guys have to come or otherwise I won't reach my goal.
Yeah.
It's really puts a lot of pressure on other people. So bringing it back to, I want to go to the mountain. If you want to follow, come along. And that just kind of, took some of that heaviness away from being responsible for everyone that you meet, and even when you know they're not going to heaven, you know, but it's not my responsibility. It's my responsibility to take care of myself and lead them. And that just kind of opened up a whole new vision for me. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Responsibility has all sorts of loading, doesn't it? The word responsibility. And if you think, well, my responsibility is to work on my own mind, and that is inspiring to others, particularly others who have a karmic connection with me or a relationship to me. We minimize our impact on people. Like we feel like, you know, we're just sort of generally nice people, not causing any trouble people, and that we're not having any impact on each other. But we're actually constantly having impact on each other. Like, you know, if someone came into this room in a boiling rage quietly, we would feel like a disturbance in the force, right? Wouldn't we? All of it, we'd be like, oh, you're right. You know, it'd feel like someone just dropped a stink bomb energetically. Or if someone came in here like just radiating with love, we might not even know who it was particularly, but we'd be like, oh, something, when you're in that deep listening state. But even when you're not, we are changing the ambiance of the room by our mental experience all the time. And taking responsibility for the fact that that is already true, whether you orchestrate it or not, is really important. Because we might think we're only impacting others when we decide to. when actually we're impacting others constantly. Yeah. I mean, you might know this from like early years of your first jobs, like when you were an adolescent and you probably had like a crappy job, like a cashier, a so-called crappy job. Sometimes those are great jobs. Oh, I miss being a cashier. No, but when you're like having a simple job that people look down on you for, how much those simple interactions change your whole day. And like one person coming in and being kind to you and seeing you as a human being, you're like, and then a few rude, entitled people in a row, you've got enough strength to kind of get through them. Yeah. Do you remember like being in like a service job, or like you're like a waitress at a really low income diner or something, and like the truckers are like, come on, and then there's a nice one, and you're like, oh, thank you. Changes everything. And then, we grow up and we may or may not have that kind of job anymore. And I think it's kind of lucky if you do. I think it's kind of lucky if you get to stay in service jobs because you see the whole spectrum of humans every day and it gives you so much material to work with. But some of us got all fancy and professional and got separated from the impact and got more and more kind of computer jobs or more kind of quote professional jobs, whatever that means. And it can isolate you from the human experience and you can stop taking responsibility for your impact. And it's curious. It's curious. And then we might start being the kind of person that snaps at waitresses. Yeah, we might become that obnoxious one, right? And not realize we've just really killed the vibe of the whole restaurant by being entitled, yeah, and full of all that kind of like pride and arrogance. So really saying to yourself, okay, on an ordinary day, what is my impact on people? It's probably generally benign. You're nice people, just kind of a generally benign, casual, friendly-ish, polite person. But if you do your practice really well in the morning, you might not say or do anything particularly different that day, but the impact is so much more. And you don't even realize it, but you actually experience that impact first. And you might forget that you had such a nice day because you launched it well. Yeah, you might think, oh, the neighbors were so nice today, and my family was getting along today, and things just really fell into place as if by magic. You did your practice, right? It's not an accident that you had a good day, right? So valuing your practice is something that we all need to kind of sit with, because if you're a nice, generally friendly person, you can take it for granted that if you don't practice, it'll still be all right. You kind of take it for granted, like you don't really have to. You'll still be nice enough, patient enough. You might lose your cool occasionally, but like you're a nice person, right? Then you take it for granted. And then when a tragedy happens or a conflict happens, you haven't been building your skill set this whole time and you get thrown off. And then you're so disappointed in yourself because you identify as a kind and loving person. And you are. And also that kindness and that lovingness could have more depth and stability because it's something you can practice and develop. It's not like an innate thing you're just magically good at. So it's really being a lot more intentional about your life. And what are the qualities and characteristics of your mind so far that you want to keep and build on and leave yourself the legacy of in your future life? And what are the habits in your mind that are actually a little dysfunctional? You came by them honest. You're not a bad person. You had your traumas, you had your issues, totally normal. And also, do you really want to keep them? Do you want to keep that habit of anxiety? Do you want to keep that habit of alienation and suspicion and paranoia? Do you want to keep that judgmentalness and that critical mind? Do you want that really? You're just used to having it. But if you were to die today and be reborn, and then you're a little baby, and then you're starting to think in words again and have ideas again, do you want those ideas to be the same as they are now? Some of them, yes. Some of them, no. But it's not like you'll get a magic reset, right? You're going to carry the tendencies you have now into your next life, for better or for worse. So legacy planning is very good, but think of legacy planning for your mind. What is the legacy you're leaving this mental continuum? And never mind next life, just like the rest of the day, right? Or tomorrow, what is the legacy you're leaving tomorrow's self, tomorrow's mind? It just makes you a little bit more organized, a little bit more intentional. It doesn't have to be pressure. It should be joyful. Like, oh, right, there are things that are important to me. I just get distracted. Yeah, come back to them. So in the morning, if you want to kind of be thinking in terms of Lamrim and Shine, that is the recommendation from our tradition. So Lamrim, the stages of the path. And this is things like the foundation of all good qualities or the three principal aspects of the path. There's lots of prayers that are short that touch the main points. And touching the main points regularly just keeps them forefront in your awareness. It doesn't have to be a whole Lamrim prayer. It could just be refuge in bodhicitta, but it's useful to have something like Foundation of All Good Qualities by Lama Tsongkhapa and just touch base with all of those main points regularly. And then Shine, which is shamatha, calm abiding meditation, single-pointed meditation. This is giving your practice power. We don't really understand how vital it is to have good concentration. And it's kind of getting worse in society. So many things making you distracted, right? So many invitations for hyperstimulation. Being able to sit still with one meditation object, whether that's the breath, the mind, a mental image, or a concept without analysis, one of those kind of 4 classic single-pointed meditation objects, remaining steadily there, even for 5 to 10 minutes a day, this gives everything else power. Yeah, it's like charging up your compassion, charging up your insight. It charges everything else up. It means your life wisdom has more power. Think about when you make mistakes. Is it usually when you're very focused and intentional? Or is it when you're distracted? When you make mistakes, is it because you're a little off center and a little distracted, like most of the time? Do you feel? And when you're, centered and focused and concentrated, less likely to make mistakes. In a general way, do you agree? Yeah. So practicing non-distraction is pervasively useful, not just in your meditation, right? It's pervasively useful. You'll be a better writer. You'll be a better letter writer. You'll be a better texter. You'll be a better emailer. You'll be a better conversationalist. You'll be better at your art and your music. You'll be better at everything if you're focused. And so rather than just kind of like having this tight idea of focus, not like that, but just a gentle practice of focusing every morning, it really helps build it like a tool, like you've gone to the mental gym and you're building up the muscle of focus. And especially as we get older and our brain does not want to cooperate in the same way, it becomes even more essential. And it can also help prevent some of the issues that happen with the brain deteriorating as you get older, right? Like even just think like women pre-menopause, after menopause, I'm right there. That's why I'm so pink. Is like my recall is not what it was. And I know it's going to get worse. I know it's going to get worse. I'm braced for it. Everyone tells me I'm really prepared. And even right now, I'm like, I know you. What is your name? What is your name? Crap. It's so frustrating because I used to be so on the ball with it. But I think, what do I do with the fact that my body is aging? I just need to double down on my practice. And actually how wonderful that aging has also brought a type of maturity that makes me less interested in silly things, right? So that's great. So I've actually got more time to practice than I used to because my mind is a little less silly. Thank goodness, right? And of course, we remain somewhat silly all the way to the end, sure. And some silliness is good. But, in terms of the activities that used to really get you spun out, like, are you such a drama queen as you were? Right? Are you so like all up in everybody's business? Like, so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that. You're probably not like that so much anymore, right? Hopefully. And if you're like, oh crap, I'm still like that, work on it. Work on it, right? Right. Right. And like that also like the grumpy, that kind of like old person grumpy, that can happen with like, I'm disillusioned with the choices I made in my life. Like, don't let yourself become a grumpy old fart. Right. Like the potential is in all of us to become a grumpy old fart. Right. It's there and it's understandable because a lot of the things we thought would happen in our life are not happening the way we thought they would. But also we were sold a bill of goods. We were lied to about what life was about because people wanted to sell us stuff, right?
So, understandable to have like a mild grump, but don't double down on your grump, right? Right? Like let it roll through at a natural pace. Yeah. Okay, so understandable grump, but don't give in to the grump. Then Brenda's saying, does 9-point breathing count as concentration meditation, 9-round breathing? 9-round breathing is like a preliminary practice where it's that bilateral breathing where you're breathing in through one and breathing out through the other nostril, and then you switch. 9-round breathing, very useful in the morning. It's a preliminary. It's a preliminary, and it really does help clear out stale air, especially if you're someone who has like sleep apnea, or you just kind of get a little bit stuffy easily, or you live in New Mexico and it's really dry, something like that. So if you do 9-round breathing in the morning, that's a nice practice to do, but it's not necessarily concentration. It's kind of like moving towards. What you want with your single pointed meditation is pick one thing. Pick one thing. It could be the spacious clarity of the mind. And if you're a morning person, that's a great one. If you're not a morning person, it will make you vague. So if you're not a morning person, it's not a value judgment. Just choose something brighter. Choose a mental image of the Buddha surrounded by light. Or choose the breath if the breath feels comfortable to you. But it's not a great idea to choose the natural clarity of the mind. The natural clarity of the mind is somewhat obscured when you first wake up, right? But if you're a bright and shiny morning person, by all means, use that one. You can also use a concept like compassion, but the way to do it single-pointedly is you think your way into single-pointedness. So you analyze what is compassion, what's the disadvantage of when it's not present, what is the advantage of when it is, and you kind of drop into, it is the core of my life, it is the heart of my practice. Yes, compassion. And when it kind of simplifies into experience without words, then you can become steady on that single-pointedly. So you can use a concept for single-pointed meditation, but you usually need to kind of zhuzh it with some words first and then land there. Yeah. So whatever you choose, don't push it too long. You start with like a Lamrim meditation or refuge in bodhicitta, or even just a poem that you love, a verse from a song that you love, something that's going to really help you come back to your good, kind heart and an expansive connection to your practice. Then some single pointedness. And then if you feel ready, you could invite thoughts into the space that you've revisited by doing single pointedness. So it's like once you're settled, then the thoughts you invite back in actually land very well. So if you wanted to do an analytical meditation, a brief one, you could. And you could do the same one for days, months, years. You could do 7-fold cause and effect on bodhicitta. You could do equalizing and exchanging self for others. You could do Tonglen. You could do Shakyamuni Buddha. You could do whatever you want. You could do your sadhanas if you're a tantric practitioner. But it is very important to kind of get those first couple pieces really good, because then whatever you add on after has the best chance of sticking and staying with you for a longer part of the day. Questions so far? Thoughts so far? Those of you that have your morning routine, what are some things that are consistently grounding for you? Or what are some things that you want to workshop a little bit more that you're having trouble connecting to? What happened this morning? Yeah, please. Where the mic?
Thanks. I wake up, make coffee, prepare breakfast, and then look out the window with my cat at the birds and just sort of like rest my mind. Or like I'll journal kind of like whatever's coming up. And that has been like a really nice sort of settling. My practice I've been doing at night, and it's been like wicked awesome. Like, wow, very cool. I hate the mornings.
Yeah.
And just like,
Yeah.
just like rest mind. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah, it's good to know that. And I'm picturing you holding your cat up, and the cat's like, I want to kill all the birds. And you're like, look at the beautiful birds. Yes. Yeah, I'm with you. But it's very soothing and you're connecting just for different reasons. But I think it's really important to know where your energy lives because, there's all these kind of studies about how some people are geared for being energetic in the morning and some energetic in the evening because it was good for the tribe if different people were perky at different times, right? So, like, don't look down on yourself if you're tired at times when everyone else is virtuously doing stuff. Hack it. Right. So I think, in terms of the morning and getting yourself well launched, if you're a fuzzy waker upper and you're kind of a dragging, like, oh, okay, I can find some peace, but thoughts are not coming clearly. If it's just like you are not a morning person, and I'm not a morning person. And before I was a nun, I was a professional baker, which also is the morning. Like, what is wrong with me? Like somehow I have the line of work where I have to get up really early and I have to do a lot of something very active, and I hate it. And I've hated it my whole adult life. So it's not changed, right? But my relationship to the drag has changed, which is I try and bring in some kind of feeling and association of coziness, right? Because I wake up going, and I have, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So I often wake up with a lot of pain as well. And I'm sure those of you getting older also wake up like stiff and like, like waking up not so fun often, physically, mentally, or both. And for me, when I wake up physically, I am stiff. I have a lot of pain. Mentally, I'm kind of hazy and a little morose. Totes. Yep. Every day, 40 plus years. Yep. Not changed. But I don't use that as the reason to practice or not. It's like, yeah, that's how I feel. Let's invite these beautiful thoughts that I love into the haze, right? The haze does not particularly clear, but the quality of the haze becomes cozy. Yeah. And then it's kind of like, you're in an Oregon foggy day, which is my life nowadays, Oregon fog. And you're kind of sitting there in your fog and you're like, okay, what's important? Okay, these prayers that I love will wake it up gently, cozy, and a little bit more recitation and a little bit less meditation in the morning definitely helps. But when I've been reciting for a while, then I kind of take a pause and I might, do some prostrations or I might jump on my rebounder, just, fun fact, or I might go like sit on the porch and like have a cup of tea and then do shine. So I do kind of like a first wake up, much words because the words are not coming naturally, much words that I read. Then I kind of do round two, and I might even have tea and breakfast and kind of, do something physical, go for a short walk, come back, and then do my shine, and then drive to work like that. Yeah, because I work at the college. So, I'm not a normal kind of lifestyle as a nun, I realize, but there still is like I have to drive to work in the morning, right? And so kind of timing it of when do I need to wake up so that I have enough practice before I hit the road into the crazy morning traffic and the grumpy morning people, and it's like worth my while to give it that space and time because if I just launch myself into the car, I'm another agitated person and increasing the agitation of the world, right? If I'm a peaceful person in traffic, then there's a lot of little pocket of peace and it can have a ripple effect. But even if it doesn't, I'm not bringing chaos to the college. More than usual anyway, chaos to the college. So you just kind of reverse engineer your day a little bit of how do I want to be when I'm in interaction with people, or how do I want to be when there's moments of more stress or more focus is needed, and how do I preempt that with good practice that puts me in the best position to benefit them. And then if you're in retreat, you do that in a way of how can I make sure that what I'm doing now has a positive impact of when I'm out of retreat? Because you only go into retreat in order to come out of retreat, right? Retreat is like not the goal, right? The goal of retreat is to work on your mind in a concentrated, focused way so that when you come out, you are stronger. It's like doing exercise intensive, and then you're super strong when you come out. That's the idea, right? Not an escape. So similarly with your daily practices, you do your practice not to avoid your life, but to prepare for your life. Yeah. And I mean, I think we know this or we know this intuitively, but sometimes we forget like this is my escape or this is my time for me or this is my special time. This is my spiritual time. And then if someone interrupts you, you're like super grumpy, right? And then we miss the point. Yeah. Yeah, please go ahead. Oh, yes, thank you. Mike's coming over.
I become aware that I'm waking up. And then I begin sort of looking for where my suffering is. Because most mornings I don't wake up in nirvana. As soon as I can manage to find that suffering, I do shine on the feeling of suffering. And that can lead to many different directions. So I don't really have bookends. It's just that's how.
Yeah, and there might be some real interesting insight that comes from that. I mean, stabilizing the mind on the pain that you experience is a good technique for pain relief because, like say your right knee hurts really bad and then you focus on your right knee. When you zoom in on it, sometimes the pain shifts and morphs and moves and the characteristics of it start to become kind of more fluid and it becomes an interesting way of kind of breaking up the tension around pain. And that's a very good strategy. But in terms of your meditation getting stronger, if you could make the pain focus into a Tonglen focus, that might enrich it.
I wasn't speaking of physical pain. I was speaking of
Well, either, yeah.
Emotional pain.
Yeah, either. And I mean, I don't know. You're the expert of your life, right? So trust yourself. And also, I wonder if you could bring more altruism to that, or more specificity of what's the direction you want this to go towards, or what do you want to do with this information? Do you want to use it as fuel for renunciation? Because physical pain or mental pain or both is great fuel for the determination to be free from samsara, because you're recognizing where suffering actually comes from is not this history or this story, or is not this pain or this injury. It is far deeper than that and far more universal than my own renunciation. So there's like more you can do with it that might give you forward momentum. It's just worth kind of workshopping it and playing with it, because I think that if you bring bookends, you bring power and depth. But what those bookends are, they have to really work for you and suit your own kind of disposition. So just kind of playing with it might be worthwhile. But again, you're the expert of your life. Yeah. And Barry's asking, how do you motivate on clear, spacious mind? I'm a morning person with a scattered mind. Yes, some morning people are like, up and at 'em. And they've got plans. They've got all sorts of plans. And if you're not a morning person, you're like, shh, right? And as you know, I'm the abbess of a small nunnery, and all of my nuns seem to be morning people. And I'm like, oh God, you guys, okay. Okay, I'm rejoicing and shh. No, and it's beautiful. And they're like, let's go. And I'm like, gently. So when you're waking up and you want to meditate on spacious clarity of the mind, don't do that as the very first thing. Even if you're a bright and clear person and very peppy, you need to kind of calibrate. So traditionally, reciting prayers out loud does help you get your mind organized in the morning. Whether you're a morning person or not, whether you're a scattered person or a vague person in the morning, reciting things that you already love gets you into alignment. And if you don't want to recite a prayer on words in front of you, it could be that it's a mantra that you recite, or it could be an image you bring to mind purposefully. It could be any number of things that suit you. It could be the verse of a song that's an altruistic song, Imagine or something. Yeah. Something wholesome. Yeah. So whatever works for you, but organizing your thoughts together with thoughts that are already organized, right? Meaning a prayer or a poem, right? They've already gotten organized. That can then open up more possibility for connecting to the spacious mind without getting scattered. Yeah. Or without getting vague. So for example, at the nunnery, what we do is for 2 minutes, we do nothing. Yeah, we just sit, settle, do nothing whatsoever. And then we do the Heart Sutra, right? Right off the bat, do the Heart Sutra and we chant it. And that really helps kind of get yourself focused and aligned, and all sorts of polyvagal grooviness happens with your brain. And it's good to chant if you can, and it's not going to annoy your housemates. Otherwise, just say it quietly under your breath, right? But so we do the Heart Sutra, and then at the mantra, we meditate on emptiness for 10 minutes. And then we recite some of Jorchu, and we stop at the four immeasurables and meditate on the four immeasurables for 10 minutes. And then we develop the refuge field, and we do a number of prayers, and then we pause and meditate on refuge for 10 minutes. And, you know, we do these kind of recite, then pause and meditate, recite, then pause and meditate. And the shine that we do is something that we usually do on our own before group practice or after group practice, depending on our disposition. So we have an hour and a half together, and then we have our own practices on either side of that have more shine. And how much shine we do, or how much single-pointed meditation we do, is very specific to the individual. You know, one of my nuns is a brand new nun, but she's 73 and she's an old Lama Yeshe student, and she's been meditating for years. She does some shine and some sadhanas, right? One of our nuns just came from the Zen tradition, and so she knows how to do Zen meditation, but she doesn't have any sadhanas or commitments or anything like that. So she does a little bit of Zen. It's fine, right? So you can have some mainstays, and then you have things that really have held you in good stead all of your life, like stare out the window at the birds with your cat, right? Or go for a little walk with your dog, and, you know, just do your normal things, but trying to bring more Dharma to them. This is the way. Okay, more in the chat. When one of the students is saying, "Oh, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and gurus, please listen to what I have to say." This waking, and you say this when you're waking up, kind of like calling out to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. That's beautiful. Look, you know, whatever you decide to do, it's not like you are locked in and you have to do that forever. It's just do it long enough for it to show its impact before you pivot. So if you're doing a Lam-Rim prayer, like the foundation of all good qualities, it's, you know, 2 pages long, right? And it's however many verses. It could be that for 6 months, you really zoom in on one verse, one topic, and build depth there. And then you recite the other in a just gentle kind of way, touching base. And then after those months, you shift and you recite that one quickly, and then you go to the next one and really drill down and build connection with that. The same is true of your tantric commitments, right? So for those of you that do sadhanas, like, even if you're only doing the short sadhanas and you're not doing the long ones, there are different sections that invite meditation, but you might just kind of rattle them through. And sometimes they touch you and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're useful. Sometimes you're just happy to have kept the commitment. But making yourself intentionally pause and really expand on one section is going to bring a lot more vividness and life to it. And if you're not sure how to meditate on different parts of the sadhana, like, make a project of it. And be like, oh, I bet there's a commentary for that. When we are reading commentaries, we often get overwhelmed by the possibilities. So then the discipline is just pick one part, just one part to zoom in on, and then pick another part a few months later, and then pick another part a few months later. Don't overwhelm your system with possibilities, but that, particularly for Tibetan Buddhists, is so common, that there's so many possibilities of what you could meditate on that you get overwhelmed and don't meditate on anything, because there's like so much you could do. Or if you start, it's not going to be perfect in hitting all the points, and so then the whole house of cards is going to fall down, and what is the point? And you have to just clumsily start. Clumsy, not pretty, not perfect, just start. And then gradually you tidy it up over time. And, you know, it's between you and the Buddhas, and they're already on board with wanting you to progress along the path. They're on board. Yeah, they've got your back. But, you know, there's no one else there in your mind besides enlightened beings who are rooting for you, right? So you might as well just be real with yourself and go, okay, I guess I'm supposed to start with some refuge and bodhicitta. All right, let's read a prayer about that. Where do I connect? Where am I confused? Knowing that, I know what to do with my study. Where I'm connecting, I'm going to go deeper. Where I'm confused, I'll revisit later or ask questions about later, but I'll hold the question. I'm not going to shut it down or resist it or push it away. I'm going to be like, okay, that's where I'm confused. Note to self. Anyway, I connect here. Depth. Like that. One of the shortest meditations that you can do that still has a lot of power is what we do for our nundros, which are our preliminary practices, which is the 7-limb prayer and then refuge. And then you just visualize and stabilize on the image of the Buddha as your object of single pointedness. Yeah, and that's a really great way of developing single pointed concentration with an underlying connection to the path. Okay, so just kind of have a little sit with it. We're going to have a 5-minute break just to stretch and grab some water, and we'll come back at 11:15. Yeah. These thoughts. And so as we experiment a little bit about, some of the traditional things we might do, think in your head, okay, of this, what might work for me? Yeah, and really make it personal. So, all right, imagine you're in your bed at home and you've just woken up at an hour that is common, right? An hour that is common, whatever that hour may be, whether it's 4 or it's 7 or it's 10 is none of my business. That's your business. Okay, so you woke up. And your first thoughts might be, it's cold, I don't want to get out of bed. Or they might be, oh, I have so much to do. But it doesn't matter. Just kind of think about when you wake up, what's your mind like? What's your mind like when you wake up? Just noticing like a scientist, not judging as good or bad, just when you wake up, what happens in the mind and with the body? And then picture your first couple of steps as you get out of bed. There might be water in, water out. There might be adding a dressing gown or adding some socks. And then imagine that you trundle over to where you do your practice, or where you would like to do your practice. And before you even sit down, what is some small offering you can make on whatever altar you have? Even if the altar you have is one small picture or even something mental. Do you pick a flower from the garden? Do you light a candle or do water bowls? Bring some fruit in from the kitchen. What's some simple physical gesture of reverence to help create a sacred space that values your own practice? And then you might do some prostrations physically, or even just your 2 palms together, having a mind of prostration, because it makes you receptive to what you respect, the path and the representations of your path. Not because they need it, but because it helps you shift from pride to confidence, from closed to open. And so whether full length, short, or 2 palms together, the most important thing is the mind. And then you sit. And then you just sit without any pressure
Just let yourself settle. Ground your body. Letting go of any tension that accumulated in the night. If you slept weird on one shoulder, if your neck got stiff, if your back is bothering you, just with your body, compassionately, inviting it to balance. And then you add some kind of prayer or poem that you love. Right now, we'll do the 7-limb prayer. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. I take refuge in the Guru. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I take refuge in the Guru. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I take refuge in the Guru. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Just be with refuge. The Buddha like the doctor, the Dharma like the medicine, the Sangha like the nurses, all helping to heal your body, speech, and mind, all supporting your development of its fullest potential. And adding bodhicitta that in order to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, I need to develop my mind. My method for developing the mind in this moment is to increase my concentration. And so visualize in the space in front of you, Shakyamuni Buddha, golden in color, one face and 2 arms, seated on a lotus, sun and moon disk, embodying your own potential, one in nature with all of your gurus. And just bring the image simply to mind, about an arm span in front, not worried if it appears clearly or not. Just holding your intention and your awareness of the presence of the Buddha. Coaxing the details into clarity without any pressure or expectation. All of the space around the Buddha is filled with light. The Buddha himself is looking directly at you while holding all sentient beings in his compassionate gaze. If your mind falls into distraction, then you just gently disengage and come back to the image of the Buddha in the space in front. Your attention gently holding, not too tight, not too loose. And then the Buddha dissolves into light and absorbs into you, blessing your body, speech, and mind. And then you invite the four immeasurable thoughts into your mind, thinking, may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness, reconnecting with immeasurable love. Repeating those words in your mind. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Repeating immeasurable compassion in your mind. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is without suffering. Reconnect with immeasurable joy. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from hatred, attachment, and indifference. Reconnecting with immeasurable equanimity. And dedicate. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that is not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Okay. So that was about 10 minutes. Yeah, done, solid. You've got a morning practice. Okay. Make it your own, tweak it as you want, but don't psych yourself out thinking it needs to be really elaborate. And even 10 minutes, can you feel kind of a spaciousness and a clarity kind of come back to your mind? Yeah, it doesn't take long. Your mind is really brilliant actually at being able to come back to space and peace if you just kind of give it the right conditions. So whether you do like this or you do something that you kind of workshop yourself, just kind of getting yourself into the habit of what is my routine? What is my ritual? What is my sacred space that I create internally and externally? Because the external container of wherever you sit or whatever you do, whatever prayers you say, and the internal container of the thoughts you have and the genuineness you bring to it really means that your mind is able to reconnect to what you already believe to be important. And then it can go deeper more swiftly. So if you only ever did that much every morning, it would hold you in good stead. And then as you kind of get into it, it might be that actually I can expand out the prayer part, or I can expand out the concentration part, or I'm going to spend more time post Shine with the thoughts I want to pull into the day, whether they're the four immeasurables or something else. But the key here is once you've dedicated, once you've kind of closed the bookend of the session, before you get up, consciously think, what is one word or concept I'm going to pull up with me? Because sometimes when you move from seated to standing, or you move from meditation area to the next room, you like lose the thread, right? So when you shift position, even if you're just kind of shifting from this mode to that mode, but you're staying in the same room, to say, okay, so today, compassion. Today, may I be open to receiving compassion. Today, may I be open to giving compassion. Both directions. And you're kind of pulling that up with you as you change positions. Does it make sense? It really is important to think about the segue, right? Or the transition period. And then when you're like doing your next morning activities, maybe you're having your breakfast, maybe you're, getting in the shower, whatever you're doing, to just kind of like consciously come back to that word a few times in your head, like, okay, compassion, shampoo, shampoo, compassion, compassion, coffee, coffee, shampoo, like that. And you just kind of like keep it awake, keep it forefront. And then, of course, once you start talking to people or doing activities, it kind of quiets down, but you're still really informed by it. So your post meditation kind of like pull the thread through that can be really effective. And then somewhere in the day, before you get to evening, if you can consciously revisit one section, or if you have sadhana practices, don't save them all for the evening. Like think about, do you want to use one in the afternoon? Like, is there a little chunk of time where you can infuse something? Maybe it's just your miscellaneous mantras, right? So we might, people that have been around Tibetan Buddhism a long time wind up with a lot of commitments that are sadhana commitments, which take, 20 minutes to 2 hours, depending on your practice. But you might also have miscellaneous mantras, right? Like you've had the commitment, I have to do a mala of Tara and a mala of Manjushri and a mala of Medicine Buddha, right? And it might be like, where do you do these miscellaneous mantras? Sometimes it's nice to like do a 5-minute practice, just 5-minute practice where you think, out of emptiness, because of bodhicitta, I arise as this deity I've had the empowerment for, say Medicine Buddha. You do your one mala of Medicine Buddhas really consciously, and then dedicate and go on with your day. And it's like 5 minutes, but it kind of recalibrates you. There's also like all of these times in the day where we multitask unnecessarily, and that multitasking actually keeps us a little upregulated, like using the microwave or the kettle or things that take 2 to 5 minutes. And we think, okay, while that's on, I'm going to scroll through my phone. While that's on, I'm going to read the paper. While that's on, I'm going to talk to someone on the phone. It's like, well, how about you just breathe, right? Just put the kettle on and breathe for 2 minutes. And then when it goes ding, make your cup of tea.
So it's kind of like finding where there already is pause in the day. Not long, not a big deal, but it kind of keeps you in your practice flow. Yeah. Things like that. Could be activities like when you put your shoes on or put your shoes off. Take your glasses on, take your glasses off. Whatever sort of like often activities, like I'm forever like changing glasses. Like, do I need the reading glasses? Do I need the distance glasses? Which glasses do I need? Maybe I should get bifocals. But anyway, whenever you like touching something like on, glasses on. Microphone on, microphone off. When you're doing these activities that are repetitive, we can tie a practice to it. Like, may I see through the veil of my ignorance? You're like, okay, well, that didn't magically make me see through the veil of my ignorance. It just helped correct my nearsightedness. However, the psychological trick, it's good for my mind to remember emptiness, yeah? When I put my shoes on and shoes off, I'm always thinking like, may I be of benefit to all sentient beings? And then the first few steps, for all sentient beings, for all sentient beings, for all sentient beings. Whatever, right? Doesn't matter, but there's a lot of things we do throughout the day that are repetitive that could get linked with a practice. Car door shut, car door open, whatever, like it helps. So that's the morning. What are your thoughts about the morning? Do you have questions or things that you want to talk through a little bit? Morning. Yes, please go ahead. Oh, yes.
I have inquired, but I do practice in the morning, which is the dream yoga practice by Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche.
Beautiful, yeah.
And it's so beautiful. And I do it like for a year already since I read this book.
Yeah.
And this practice is the first thing in the morning. And what I do, I try not to think.
Yes.
Like a zombie. I go in my atrium, where I sit down in the dark, trying to remember my dream, and then write it down.
Beautiful, yeah.
And it's really helping me so much. I become more conscious. But you have to work like 24 hours per day with this practice.
Definitely.
Daytime too. So that's the first thing. And other things come, meditation, mantra singing. It's much easier now. Because I'm like didn't get used to it.
Yeah.
Only when I retired, I finally got down to the practice because I have so much time. What am I gonna do?
Yeah. You're so lucky to be retired and healthy.
It's my happiest time of my life.
Yeah. Which like should be kind of the norm, shouldn't it? That like, you have your student years, your teacher years, and your yogi years, and now you're in your yogi years. You should be able to get to practice. But so many people have so many health issues or so many family commitments, or like they just have to golf, whatever.
I know.
And it just takes up their whole retirement.
I live in a senior environment and I watch these people.
Yeah.
And I feel great compassion to these people because they don't know what to do. All day long, they're sitting and looking at windows or in wheelchairs, coming out and looking at people. And I don't know how to help them because they're not interacting with each other.
Yeah.
So
many people, right? And, it's hard to inject a path at the last minute. Right? It's better to flesh out a path you've had the whole time now that you have space to do it. And then you see all these people who haven't had a path their whole life. And it's interesting to kind of think like what's going to bring out the best in them and what's going to reconnect them with their heart, because whether they've articulated it or not, they probably have some kind of refuge, even if it's like nature. Right. And so asking questions about what has given them life, what has given them love, what gives them connection, what's been the core values of their life, and then helping them remember those. And then how can you build on that? Sometimes when you're with folks that don't have a spiritual path and it seems a little late to invite it, find what actually already was. Because it doesn't have to be Buddhism to be helpful or altruistic or lead to a good future rebirth. We don't have to get fundamentalist about it, but it is nice to kind of gently prod and be like, when have been the happiest times in your life so far? And they might talk about family, or they might talk about nature, or they might talk about traveling. And then you don't get lost in the event or the story. You try and hear under it of what about that gave you life. Was it the feeling of connection? What was it? And just kind of like exploring that can be such a gift to people. And again, if your own practice is getting stronger and stronger and your focus is getting better and better, you become even more effective to others. You can listen on more levels and kind of help give them back their wisdom, because they have wisdom. But it just kind of got distracted and clouded over. So you're listening deeply for their own insights about their own life, speak it back to them and give it back to them. It can be such a gift. And it's something that can really build as you meditate more. So your meditation is, yes, for all sentient beings. That can feel a little abstract, but it's for also the sentient beings you see every day, right? It's the ones that you interact with all the time. It's for them and all sentient beings. And sometimes thinking of those specific ones in your life can give you a lot of motivation. Yeah, these ones really could use more clarity from me or more connection from me. So let's do it. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead and pass to him, but we'll do one online. Terry, go ahead.
Thank you, Venerable.
Nice to see you. Go ahead. Oh,
little,
what's happening?
can you hear me?
Yeah. Dewdrop, help.
Can I talk? Is it working? Hello.
She's unmuted. She's unmuted, but we can't hear her. Sorry about the technical difficulties, folks. Apologies, Terry. We can't hear you yet, but I think we're trying to sort out the tech. You can hear on Zoom. Yeah, just not in the room. Venerable's playing with the settings and we might be able to fix it. Please stand by. Should we try now? Yeah. Sorry, Terry, go ahead. Have another go.
Thank you. Thank you, Venerable. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Hooray.
I would appreciate it if you could just comment a little bit about where purification fits in a morning practice. I would say from my own practice, I get up and I do, some water bowls and introductory prayers, and then purification. And if I get rushed, I will do the purification and not do the meditation. So if you could just, and I know my life is my own business, but I'd love your opinion about kind of making those choices.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, purification at the end of the day is kind of a mainstay of Tibetan Buddhist practice. So end of the day purification is a norm. And then also morning purification practice like prostrations to the 35 Buddhas is quite common. But if you were to choose the timing of it, it's can be more useful to do purification at the end of the day because you can think of what happened today that was not in alignment with your path and how that's symptomatic of longer patterns of your life so far. And so you kind of have more material to work with. When you first wake up in the morning, you're like trying to remember yesterday and stuff, and it can be a little abstract. When you're doing morning purification, like 35 Buddhas, you could think more thematically, like I'm purifying attachment. Now I'm purifying anger. Whereas at the end of the day, you might think more specifically of, oh, I was harsh with so-and-so, and tomorrow I'm going to really watch my speech with them. You can be more kind of specific. One thing you can do in the morning if you don't have a lot of time is do the 7-limb prayer like we just did and pause at the meditation line, just that line. And when you pause at that line, just take a moment and generate those 4 opponent powers, right? Refuge, regret, remedy, resolve. And it doesn't even have to be long. It can just be a few minutes, but thinking back over the patterns that have been up recently, you can really think, okay, lately it's been speech things, I've been divisive or whatever. And, I really recognize that that's not my path. And today, specifically, when I'm with so-and-so at coffee, I'm not going to rant about politics, right? Like you make a really specific plan for the day at that line right here. And I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time. You're like, I don't remember all my actions accumulated since beginningless time, but I do remember my general trends. Right? And so pick one and make it your project for the day. So you're doing this 7-limb prayer. Sometimes you just read it, but some days you can meditate on each line or just one line. this one prayer has so many layers of richness. So if you kind of make it a project to connect with the 7 limbs and then zoom in on the confession line, that can be a nice way of bringing purification right into the morning fairly swiftly. Yeah. Does that help, Terry?
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you so much.
It again went off. That's so weird. Oh, great. Thumbs up. Okay, great. Let's do one in the room and then we'll do Eve online.
I just wanted to share from my own crazy morning practice. From the moment that I become aware that there's wakeness, to the moment I'm standing beside the bed is like about 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
There's so much distance and space that in there, and it's all pretty sacred. It's all like fertile earth to turn over. That's just what.
Yeah, yeah. Eve, go ahead.
Hi there, Venerable. Good to see you. So were you going to take time, I think you mentioned this, to speak about people who've taken a tantric empowerment, and because I'm brand new at that, and I don't want to take that time if you were going to get to it later or whatever. Is it okay to ask a question now about it?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just took an empowerment last weekend. And the commitment is succession guru yoga. And so I'm just thinking about, I'm brand new to it, just kind of trying to bring it into my daily practice. And you've also suggested components here, about a daily morning practice and how to integrate. Maybe many of those are already in succession guru yoga, maybe not, but how to integrate some of the things you're talking about here into that as well. I mean, I've got about I got to get up and go to work. So I got maybe 30, 45 minutes in the morning, something like that. So anyway,
Yeah.
if you could comment on that, that'd be really helpful.
Sure. For those of you that don't have highest yoga tantra, succession guru yoga is this practice to help you keep all your tantric vows and all of your tantric samayas in a kind of efficient 20-minute in the morning, 20-minute in the evening kind of form that has recitation and meditation practice with it. And so when you have a highest yoga tantra empowerment, you've made a promise to do all 6 sessions every day for the rest of your life, and you do 3 in the morning and 3 in the evening. And this practice is beautiful and rich, but because you kind of quote have to do it because you promised, it can feel a little heavy or like a chore unless you're bringing some life force to it intentionally. So what I often do is I have a commentary going, on my by my couch that is something that I'm reading very slowly. That is about a practice that I do anyway, whatever the practice is. And I'm reading it very slowly, and I try to just gently weave in parts into my practice. So succession guru yoga, like pretty much all practices, starts with refuge and bodhicitta. And so you might want to just go and use it as your meditation outline and just meditate on refuge and bodhicitta at that verse with more intentionality and more depth, because it's already a mainstay and it's already something you've had a lot of teachings on and familiarity with. And honestly, the reason why anyone in Buddhism leaves Buddhism is probably because they did not actually understand and connect with refuge. Refuge seems so straightforward, so easy, so intellectually simple. And yet, what are you actually relying on? And has that become clear and committed for you? You might jump straight to bodhicitta. Oh, I'm going to work for the welfare of others. From what place? From what position? From what foundation? So even though it's a highest yoga tantra practice, you're really reinforcing your foundation. And then you do the rest of the practice as written at whatever speed feels good to you. And then in a few months, you might just tap refuge and bodhicitta and shift to the four immeasurables verse and give that a lot of airtime. And by a lot, I mean like 5 minutes, right? It doesn't have to be huge amounts of time, but it's enough for deep connection. And then gradually you get into the more esoteric parts that might need more commentary. And that can become kind of more of an exciting project of, I think I understand what this means. I don't understand what that means. That is a question for my teachers, making a mental note, and you just sort of gradually building this familiarity and connection with this practice so that eventually it starts to feel like your old friend. And it does, it feels like my old friend now, having done it, for 20 plus years. It's like, oh yeah, there's my buddy, my succession buddy. Right. So the only way to kind of prevent it becoming like a chore is to be proactive about it and really keep the joy of it. And the things that kill joy are usually overwhelm or confusion, or you've missed the essential foundational components. And if that's happened, it's no big deal. Just make a point to shore it up. Yeah, it becomes a problem when it's passive. Right? When you're like, oh, I have no life with it. Oh, well, guess I'm going to die soon anyway. And when you kind of get morose about your practice, then it's not going to be effective, right? Yeah. Yeah. Does that help, Eve?
Yes, thanks
Yeah,
so
it
much.
becomes your meditation outline, basically.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Teresa says memorizing has been really helpful. Yeah, it can be for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Other thoughts about your morning practice, you guys? Yeah, please. One in the room.
This isn't specifically morning practice, but if I'm more honest with myself and the room, I wake up and I scroll on my phone for an amount of time that differs every day.
Yep.
So, I mean, I can like in this session, I can think of like, oh, well, what if I do refuge before that, like have like, okay, I want to scroll on my phone, but before I can like do this thing instead, and then I can scroll, tiny thing.
Yeah.
So that's what's coming up right now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and it's a really modern conundrum. Two thoughts come to mind. One is buy an alarm clock, use an alarm clock, keep your phone out of your room. Right. And honestly, I think it's a good idea for all of us. Keep your phone out of your bedroom. Have an alarm clock, old school, right? That goes beep, beep, beep. Or you can have one of those gentle ones that gradually lights up, whatever you want, but have an alarm clock. And that might be too hard because we are a little addicted to these little tiny computers sometimes. So a hack could be, what if you put some of your first morning prayers on your phone? And you're like, I'm just going to read it from my phone while lying down, being cozy with cat or without, cat optional, right? And you're reading some prayers while you're lying down, all cozy. And then you get up and do a more proper session. But you have kind of your pre-session of coziness with your cozy friend phone. And then you kind of get yourself into prayer land, put it down, go to the bathroom, do your routines, and then sit properly and do prayers. So it could be that you hack it that way. This is just something that I feel comforting in my wake up procedure, and it seems very unlikely that I'll give it up. So how can I make it virtuous? Yeah. Yeah, like this. Yeah. Yeah, common conundrum. Common conundrum. Then yeah, some people online are saying, scrolling. Yep, you're not alone. Okay. And Mary's saying, I've heard people grab the phone first thing to connect, or like fear of missing out. And there was a Chinese doctor that recently said to my friend, you use your phone like a friend, but it can't love you back. And so you're forever depleted. And it's like you're picking up because you want connection. And it does give some connection to the world, connection to ideas, connection to entertainment. But it's like the substitute for human relationships in the modern world. And it's not bad in and of itself, but it's not as useful as an actual human, right? Or your actual path. And it just takes a little bit more work for your practice to give you that sense of connection. So, I don't know, I used to always say probably so much that my students got bored, that I feel like psychology tools help build connection between people, between yourself and your emotions, between yourself and your history, between yourself and society. Psychology helps build connection, right? Buddhism helps reveal connection, right? There already is connection, but we don't always feel it. And the techniques of Buddhism are peeling back the veil that obscures us and gives us this feeling of separateness. And so if you can really tune into the fact that your spiritual path can help you feel that connection we all so desperately want and go to this like quick fix for, it can kind of reorient you about these habits, because you have more compassion for yourself of, I'm not doing this grab for the phone because I'm bad or undisciplined. I'm doing this grab for the phone because I'm sad and lonely, like all sentient beings. Right? Even if there's a whole other human there, or like dogs or whatever is happening in your bed situation, like you can feel totally alone, even if there's a whole other person there, or a dog or a cat or whatever, right? We're grabbing the phone because we want connection. And so be strategic about what actually gives connection, rather than beating yourself up for the strategies we use to try to achieve it. Just be more strategic about these strategies. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I have some friends who text each other in the morning, right? Live. Then it's a live human connection. Good morning, I'm awake, bodhicitta. Good morning, I'm awake, bodhicitta. Okay, done. Right? You can do all sorts of hacks, but something that's more depth, because it will be more satisfying and have more, I guess, connection throughout the day and more momentum long term. So just kind of think about, is there a way to use what you already do in ways that are healthier and more effective, rather than like hand slap, I'm bad, because that's not useful and it's not kind, And then if by some miracle you break the habit of scrolling on your phone in the morning, then you might start getting judgmental about other people that do, right? That happens so quickly, right? Like the new convert of anything like becomes such a jerk. Right. So don't be like that. Just be like, oh, I'm so glad I don't do that. But I know why people do. And it's the same reasons we do everything. We just want happiness. We don't want suffering. And it seems like happiness or freedom from suffering. And like most of our strategies, quite flawed. Yeah. So like this. Yeah. Morning virtuous scroll, morning virtuous text, or just get yourself an alarm clock. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we're getting to lunchtime, and so we're going to talk about lunchtime. Lunchtime's a good time for practice in terms of merit making and breaking habits of attachment by what? Offering your food, right? And it's simple and it's straightforward, and it can be 100% quiet and mental and non-performative and not annoy people that you're eating with. It's a private practice, but when you're with other Buddhists, you can do it out loud, and that's nice. But when you're with people who are not Buddhist, you don't have to be like, everyone hold still, I'm doing my practice. Right? You're not saying grace, right? You're not forcing people to like do your thing. It's a mental process. Like if I'm at a restaurant and I'm with my parents or something and they are not Buddhist, I'm going to be in my head about it. And all it looks like is that I'm staring at my food for a second before I eat it. And usually people don't notice because they're like right in there, right? So, but kind of being intentional about your food and having either a gratitude practice that recognizes interdependence can be completely secular, right? You can just be like, this food did not come out of nowhere. This food came from resources. This came from the work of sentient beings. May I see it as medicine to make myself strong to benefit others. May I see this food as medicine to make me strong to benefit others. Or may I use this food as a way of understanding interconnectedness? Because just as this food is made of the elements, so is my body. Something, yeah, something. A classic one is the 3-bite practice. Venerable Pema Chodron talks about this a lot, but it's pretty common, which is that you offer your food to the 3 jewels, Om Ahum, may this become oceans of uncontaminated wisdom nectar that I offer to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And then your first bite, you think, may I refrain from negative actions. And you're just thinking that as you chew your first bite. May I refrain from negative actions. And then your second bite, may I do positive actions, positive beneficial actions. Then third bite, may I benefit sentient beings. Which is basically the Bodhisattva vow. So no one needs to know, right? You're not like talking with your mouth full, may I, you're not doing that. It's in your head. And it makes it meaningful, but even just bringing a virtuous thought to those first three bites, you often eat more mindfully, you digest better, you have more gratitude with it. It's win-win, all sorts of win-win and more merit, all of that. So there's a lot of things you can do with mealtime, but bringing some thoughts to it is a really good idea. And it also helps us have the merit to keep receiving resources. So we might take for granted that, of course, we'll be fed, but this is the ripening result of positive karma. And we want to create more causes for this in the future, right? And not just kind of drain the bank. Yeah. Okay, so let's do one right now. All right, so whatever the food is, I don't even know what we're having for lunch, but I'm sure it is food. Okay, so whatever the food is, thinking that it purifies and transforms and increases into an ocean of nectar that we offer to the representations of our path. Omai, 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 Laya ma sanghe lama Jude shin lama Ge dunte kungi je polama te la manam la chupabu Otombala me sange rimboje, gyupala me damju rimboje, drembala me gendu rimboje, kabne kunjo sumla chupabu. Okay. So 3-bite practice, should you choose to accept, and we'll be back at 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Thank you.